All right, Q&A time. But before we go into Q&A, I was going to tell you guys a story. Oh, thanks guys, checking it out. Yeah, I've tried Game Maker. Game Maker's cool. Um, I like. I have a theory. I'll get into it after I tell the story. So, one day, this is a true story. This is about just doing shit. Doing shit. One day, there was a clay instructor and he was looking at his students and he said, "You there." And it was one group of students. And he said, "You guys, I just want you guys to make pottery that just weighs a certain amount collectively, meaning however many you have to make to weigh 40 pounds, upwards to 40 pounds. I'll just put 40. You'll get an A. And then 30 pounds equals a B, and etc., and etc." And he says, "You there," the other group of students in his class. And these are divided evenly. It wasn't just random segregation, or it wasn't like clear segregation. It was random. "You guys just need to make one pot, but it has to be perfect. And I'll be grading it based off of how perfect it is." Okay? So this is the situation. And he splits the class in two, and he makes them go for like a week or two, however long this time was. I don't have the specifics on this. Let's just say it was a week. I don't know. I don't know if I got it from there. But anywho. So he tells them to do this. A week goes by. They all submit their work. But he does something interesting with this. He takes, we'll call this group A and group B. He takes groups A. He takes all the pots and all the different pots that were done by all the different students. And instead of labeling them, which groups or which students worked on whatever, it was not labeled. And he had it out to display for people from out around the school, the campus can check out. And he had people vote on which ones they thought they were their favorites. And what happened was, interesting enough, the group that had the most favorable votes, meaning the most votes, was almost a landslide group A. Now, how's that possible, right? Like group B was to make a perfect, and they only had to make one. How is it that the ones that had to make perfect pottery failed, where the ones who just had to make pounds worth of pottery succeeded? Well, what ended up happening was that the people who were in group A, who only had to worry about the quantity, they were free. They had thought of creative and interesting ways to try to make pottery way more and more, so they didn't have to make 17 small little teacups. They just made like elaborate pots and pans, or pots and plates and bowls and what have you. Where the people in group B, they were so focused on perfection that every little imperfection they didn't feel like they were going to accomplish or yield the best results, so they had to try again. But that fear uh, basically caused a few reactions. One was obviously those who were able to create perfect pots created them, and they were fine, but they were plain. They were just standard. And then the ones who weren't able to get perfect pots just gave up because they're just like, well, this is impossible. I can't do it. And then I guess the third variable is a little bit of the both, and people submitted imperfect pots. So there's like plain pots that just look kind of stupid. But with Group A, you had people coming up with pots that were like, like spirals, like vases that were like spirals. This looks like a piece of crap, but you get my point. And like really elaborate and like interconnecting vases, Because the fear of making it good was not an issue, but it basically spawned good stuff. So the moral of the study that I've basically kind of lived by for the majority of my career, and I still think that this is a foundational piece of knowledge, which is that quantity fuels quality. Meaning if you just do something enough, quality will just come from it. Now there is a good, like I said earlier, there's a curve, right? You wanna be on that curve where you're just not spitting out a shitload of things just for the sake of getting it out there. But at the same time, being so nitpicky can also be very detrimental to your growth. So being somewhere in the middle where you put a lot of good effort into doing something a lot is where you want to live, where you feel like every time you're trying something new, you are generally getting better. You're not just like doing 1-minute studies and just the information goes in one ear and goes out the other, right? You're somewhere in between. And I believe the time limit to really learn something new can definitely live between 30 minutes to an hour. Truly, like to really have something compounded in you. And using tools to focus in this, like mnemonic devices, like sounds that relate to words that are very hard to remember, right? Stuff like this. I like to use peg systems, coordinate, or I like to tell stories too, to remember things. Storytelling is a really great tool to remember lots and lots of things. So that's the story that I wanted to talk about. So let's talk about this, the theory that I had mentioned earlier. What was I talking about? I'm making this game, right? Like I'm just making experiences. And the reason why I don't want to use Game Maker, why I was using Unreal for quite a while, I'm actually probably going to pick up Unity as well. Seems like Unity works with JavaScript. There might be some sort of parallax between Unity's JavaScripting alongside Play Canvas. I think having both of those combined could be a really deadly combination. But my point that I'm trying to come across to you guys is that I feel like if I just make tons and tons of games or experiences, I'll just like I just demonstrated right now, I'll come across a really good platform to make something worthwhile and experiences that people would love to be a part of at some level. And have it at the expense of your browser. As long as you have internet, you can play my games. Next step is to find a way to monetize it once I actually get good at it and build a reputable audience around it. With that being said, Q&A time. Ask some questions, y'all. It is time. Now, I'm probably going to do Gumroad videos, and then what I'm going to end up doing is do mentorships where I don't talk about what I build. Will just be a mentorship. And whatever you want to become accomplished at, I will help you be able to accomplish that. But this will take a while for this to happen. Any questions, friends? If you don't mind speaking out loud, it'll be easier. Dill on. Del on. Yeah, especially since you wrote a lot. Dillon asks questions and then leaves. Oh no.
Okay.
There
I
you
actually had to leave the chat and come back. But
go. No big deal. I was like, ask a question and bounce. I don't care about the answer later, Joe. What?
Do you still want me to ask you like voice?
Yeah, I was just kidding.
Okay.
It's just funny because I was
Okay.
talking to you and you were gone. You just left.
Yeah. Sorry about that. Okay. Um, so I'm in school right now, and Lauren is too. We both go to the same school, but sometimes when we're in crit, or at least for me, um, people ask like, why does his shoulder look like that? You know, like for a creature design or a character design, it's not clear as to why his shoulder looks like that. I'm not sure what to think about it. It doesn't answer my question about the character, and I can't really decrypt why it's like that. Um,
This is what your
but
peers say to you.
yeah, they'll be like, I don't really understand the function of his shoulder, and I'm not really sure. I'm sorry if you hear laughing in the background.
Nope. Don't
Very good.
apologize. Kill them.
You're all blacklisted. um, but basically, like they they like they don't really have uh they have a problem with not being able to see every aspect of the design as like functional for like the beginning. But I don't know if that's really a problem. Like, I don't really know what the line between really interesting design is and like function, or if they go like hand in hand.
Okay. Um, so let me ponder on this for a little bit. So I have an answer, but I'm just trying to think of the best way to answer this. So who are the general people giving you these critiques and this criticism?
Um, they're kind of so like they're my peers, my classmates. We're both juniors in illustration, but we have a visual development minor. They're taking our classes. They actually don't have much education on biz dev in general, but some of them actually want to go into it. So yeah.
Okay, so where are they coming from with this feedback? I think you're alluding to it a little bit, but can you be more specific?
Do you mean like
Okay,
uh,
let me just answer this question then.
okay.
I just wanted to get more information just so I don't um,
Yeah,
get
yeah.
this confused. Um, so whenever I get critiques, especially when I was in school, I was very bad at what I did. Okay, right, and so getting critiques often on things I just it bothered me because it's very personal sometimes. Like you spend all this time trying to be good at a thing, and then people tell you you're not so good at the thing. It sucks, you know. But I I grew out of that very quickly, and I realized a lot of why I was having these concerns is insecurities, right? So there's a little bit of that going on for you right now. Okay. Now I know that you might not feel that that's true, but trust me, that's how it works. Okay. Everybody's got that. And their criticism can also be spawning from insecurity, right? And so then what I ended up discovering whenever I got criticism, I discovered that everybody is right at some level. And my job is to see what they're trying to get at. Because I don't really think people are trying to maliciously trying to kill me and tear me down, right? And I think that's the same case for you. I mean, if you should be able to tell whether someone's being malicious or not. You know what I mean? Like those are a little bit
Yeah.
easier to spot. So go off the side of, well, these people are trying to kill me or hurt me or prevent me from achieving my dreams. They generally just don't like that arm. Why? Why not? And why am I so critical of their criticism? You know? Like why am I not just saying, you're right? You understand? Like why am I not just like right off the bat saying, you guys are absolutely right?
Yeah.
You know? Why is there
Yeah.
some restraint? And so I've come up with a formula, right? Which is as simple as this. You know, have you ever heard the phrase, can I give you my 2 cents?
Yeah.
Now, I approach everybody and anybody's feedback as if they're giving me their 2 cents. And so I just listen to it because now I'm 2 cents richer. Even if it's only 2 cents. You know what I mean?
Dude,
Like
that's smart. Yeah.
even if it's literally only 2 cents, like it's not practically a lot of value. At least there's still a reason. And then so then you have to kind of step back and have an out of body experience a bit, right? And say, okay, what if I was not attached to this artwork? What if um, I was just an outsider looking at the situation? How would I react to this? Which side would I be on? Why? What would I think, right? And so a lot of what I've discovered about feedback on people in general is that whenever people give you these types of criticisms and feedback, especially when they're asked to, like the teacher's like, tell us how you feel about their work, right? And so some people that had an indifference, they could care less, are now forced to come up with some solution. So they'll find whatever thing that is a flaw. And so you have to ask yourself, uh, the next question is, are they right? And I will tell you right now, in almost every instance, people are generally right. Okay? And so not always, but in almost all instances, or most
Yeah.
instances,
Yeah.
they're generally they're onto something. Because let me give you an example. Let me give you an example. All right. Let me give you an example. Yeah, this should be fine. These all should be fine. You know, when you look at something like this, criticism is hard to come across, right? Look at something like this, criticism is hard to come across, correct? When you look at
Yeah.
something like this, criticism is hard to come across. Not to say that there can't be any, it's just hard. What do they all have in common? Criticism is going to be hard to come across.
Yeah.
What do they all have in common? Why is it hard? Or why? Imagine if this person's artwork or all the other ones were in front of your peers and yourself. What would you say? Like, give Vitaly Bogrov some criticism right now. Why is it difficult?
It looks, I think it's because it looks really finished. Like it's totally complete. Like I don't know, it just feels like a realized concept. I don't know.
So, so,
Really.
so maybe that's the problem, right? I always come to this solution. It's very simple. The reason why people can still criticize you is because you're not good enough. It's really that simple. Absolutely, hands down,
That's true.
nails to the wall. You're just not good enough. That's it. There's nothing mysterious about it. Because if you are tremendously good at what you do, it's going to be hard to criticize. Not to say that it's impossible, okay? Because everybody can have their flaws. But when you look at this Jeremy Geddes painting, tell me what's wrong with it.
Nothing at all.
There can be flaws, man, but it is just
Yeah,
very difficult. You see what I'm saying? He went out of his way to make it very hard for you to criticize his work. You understand?
that's true. Yeah, that's true.
So when
Yeah.
people can still and easily find flaws in your work, that means you still have flaws in your work. It's really that simple. It's really always going to be that simple. Okay? And you just got to listen to the people when they tell you that shit and then just try to keep working on it. Because then one day you're going to be like someone like Phil Hale, like Jeremy Geddes, Vitali, the several artists we looked at earlier. You know?
Yeah,
And
yeah,
and it
it
doesn't
totally.
matter. It really doesn't matter the level of your peers either or the people around you. Your instructor could be much better than you and tell you what's wrong with your work. And then the people around you might be worse than you, can still tell you what's wrong with your work. You just got to understand that if you showed up to class with paintings as elaborate as something like this to say, people will be asking you how the hell you do it, you know,
Oh, totally.
right?
Absolutely.
And so when you're in a position where people are giving you feedback, take it. That's what I'm trying to say. Okay, until one day people give you less and less feedback, and then you're gonna have to find feedback in other alternative ways, right? And so and so the way that I usually like whenever you hear me talk like about politics, let's say, like I'm very progressive. I'm all about people having free healthcare. Well, not free healthcare, government paid healthcare, right? Means that we put taxes in, we get badass healthcare. We don't have to worry about shit. Free education. You can go to school for free, again, under our taxes, right? um, but, and my friend, he's relatively conservative, and he told me this one scenario. He's like, well, what about, like, there's a study they did, and where they had everybody in a class, and everybody basically did their test, and at the end, the teacher averaged their grades, and that's what the whole class had as an average. So the people who did fairly poorly got a higher uh, grade, right? So like the majority of people had A's and B's, and then the people in the middle had like C's and D's, and then they said, okay, we're going to average your grade. And then so then they did the test again, right? And basically people didn't want to do this much because they realized, well, I don't have to work as hard because um, the people ahead are going to push me forward, right? And then the people in the front of the class, the people that were getting A's, felt kind of cheated because they were putting a lot of good effort and basically were getting their scores lowered because of the weaker students in the class, and eventually the grades were at a confrontational level. You understand? And he's like, see, like, and he looked at me straight in the eyes, like, and this is why socialism doesn't work. And I looked him straight back in the eyes, and I said, you're talking about equal results. I'm just talking about equal opportunity, right? Because in that same scenario, what you are not failing, what you're failing to realize is that's not the problem. The problem isn't that the people who get A's are getting pulled down by the people who got C's and D's. It's that the people who got A's are literally taking away half the questions that are even available to answer for the ones that are like on the lower end. So that even if they wanted to get an A, they can't. And he was like, oh, now I started to see what you're getting at. And I was like,
Yeah.
it's not about equal results. It's about equal opportunities, right? And I think people who think too far on the left, which is a lot of progressive people like you and I, people who think too far left, they think that everything should be entitled to them. I'm not trying to say that that's you, but that's some of that lives inside you. And I'm the conservative. I have a very conservative mindset when it comes to achieving success, which is if you aren't good, no one's going to hire you. All these people in America who complain about all these jobs going to everybody else, they fail to realize that they're just not qualified. Why would I want to hire you when I can hire them? And I don't mean that because they're
Yeah.
cheaper. I mean because they're better, right?
Yeah,
This
really, it's
person,
just an
this
excuse.
person is from Spain. He is just better. This person is from Malaysia. They are just better. Do you understand? If I
Oh,
want
totally.
somebody that has
Yeah.
this quality of work, like literally, this is probably only person that I can think of to hire. It's not that they're going to be cheaper either. I'm just saying this is how it works. And so when you guys go about thinking about your own portfolios, remember that, you know, remember that this is how the world works. And the problem is on the economic side of things is that it's not so much that the jobs are going outside of the U.S. That's the problem is bigger than that. It's because people are either feel way too entitled, right, or people are completely naive of the problems of others. Okay, and so you have these two freaking factions of people fighting each other. I remember I was talking to somebody, and we were talking about all this stuff, and I was like, yeah, and there's like, competition just doesn't work, and I was like, no, competition works, and she's like, what? Because after we were just having this strong progressive conversation, right? Because if you're a progressive, you have to also be anti-business. And I said, that doesn't make any sense. I was like, because it does work. I have a miniature computer in my pocket. Like that's what competition spawned. But but you have to also understand, competition doesn't work for healthcare, right? It's stop thinking of it black and white, y'all. Right? Think of there's gradations to life, and And when you start to do that, you become more well-versed and well-knowledged, and you won't sit. That's why I'm an independent. I'm not Democrat, and I'm not Republican. I'm an independent thinker. I look at the facts, I look at the evidence, and I draw my conclusions to the reality of the world, not by philosophy or not by my gut. I go by what works. I post my artwork every single day, consistently for days. I will get more and more followers. This is just how it works. You know, it's just how it works. There's nothing mysterious about it. And in a product of that, I get better and better as I work and work. You know, and if you guys ever are in this position that De Leon was finding himself in, right? Always remember that there's very clear evidence of what you need to do to achieve certain goals. Like you just got to go to ArtStation or Pinterest or wherever you find your influences, and just look at them and say, is my work even remotely close to that? And if the answer is no, then keep at it until one day the answer is yes. All right?
Hey,
It's
can
really
I
that
can
simple.
I
It's really that simple. And so just to kind of to put a bow on this answer that you started with, like, how do I perceive? So here's a me giving you some practical tools. Um, Understand that everybody has different tastes and can be subjective. So that is something that you should be very cautious of. Okay. And whenever I have my wife give me critique on my work sometimes, she'll be like, why did you choose green? And I'm like, what are you talking about? It's complementary. In my head, I'll think that, right? But then I'll say, but why? Is it only because I chose it because it was complementary? Because for her, she just didn't like it. Now I understand contrast is a really great tool, and I can use that. But maybe green wasn't the right choice overall because colors is an illusion, right? And so I would think of all the different ways and uh, conclusions and the results that I could have potentially had that would have resulted into a different reaction for my wife, right? And that's including not just the color, it's including the drawing itself. you know? And so I remember showing my wife paintings of my favorite artist, Sparth, and I was like, what do you think of this person's artwork, right? I just was curious to see what she would say about someone that I really admired, you know? And her response was perfect. She says, they're unfinished. Why doesn't he finish his paintings? And I was like, what? What are you talking about? Like, these are like impressionistic. It's like a style. It's like he's really good at getting a lot of information conveyed and with very limited amount of effort. And she's like, yeah, but like it just looks unfinished. It just looks like sloppy mess. And that's when I realized my wife sees the painting for what it is. I see it for this technical prowess. She just sees an unfinished digital painting. Not to say that Sparta is a person that does not have finished painting. I'm just saying that reaction was probably $1 worth of information. You know what I mean? Said a lot. I was like, I can paint my paintings really dope, but if it's just this kind of, if my impression of my painting is just um, like superficial, people will spot that first before they'll spot the epic painting. You know?
So like, can I like ask a? It's gonna be like a really simple way for me to understand this. Like,
Yeah, go for it.
if if a pie, if feedback is a pie, then then your wife is giving you a piece of that pie that you never knew existed, and like force feeding it to you, and you're like, oh, actually, this
Yeah, look
kind
like
of
you're losing
makes
the
sense.
class. You're losing the class. Lauren is
Okay, sorry.
gonna Lauren's gonna drop out of the school just because of you. She's like, I can't associate myself with lunatics. He's like, lunatics. He's a lunatic. I would not like to say. Just know that I'm gonna
Sorry.
enroll. No, it's my analogy. I think is a better one. I appreciate you trying to go for a separate one. Everybody's piece of advice is worth a damn. Okay. Whenever you go to conventions and events, you'll have this is very valuable because you'll have people say, "Oh, you need more environments in your portfolio," and you have the next person say, "You need more characters." Like literally contradicting each other in the same event. You'll have that happen. But if you go there knowing that I want to be a character concept artist, and so the person that says to me that I need to have more environments in my portfolio, what they're truly saying to me is that I'm just not good enough, right? And then the person that says that I need more characters in my portfolio, they said that they actually do like my characters, right? They like the style, they like the potentially the style or the genre. So maybe this is something I should sharpen as well, right? Do you see how you start to round out kind of the corners of what you are by being a little bit more um, aware of what people are saying versus completely reactive? Because if you're just constantly reactive to every piece of negative advice, and I mean in a very detrimental way, like if you just say, well, I don't know if that's like, no, just dissect it. Like, why would they even say that in the first place? And you'll find sometimes it's nonsensical, but at least you would have dug deep to make sure that it was nonsensical. Because you might have found some gold in what they were saying, you know? Because I had teachers that were like all about form over function. They said, if you don't design with form and function in mind, then your designs are weak. And I would find plenty of examples of people who didn't do that with their artwork. And I said, well, how is this possible if this person exists? You know? And these are teachers and instructors that I truly respected, and I still do. But I was able to even still question entirely what they were saying, you know? As you guys should always be thinking about the criticism that I'm giving to you, picking up the things that make sense and putting the ones that don't. I remember I had an argument once with my really good friend, Paul Richards, and he's a really amazing designer. And we would argue and argue and argue about all kinds of things, right? And I learned a lot from those arguments and those disputes, but I respected him as a designer. I learned a lot from strengthening my own arguments, you know? Because in some cases, I couldn't come back with something uh, of value, so I had to concede, you know? And that's how it should be. And and if you really want to get feedback that is more trustworthy, then you surround yourself with the people that give you the advice that you hear and you know it's helpful, right? And then the ones who aren't, and you know they're just kind of like constantly they're just Debbie Downers. then you have more evidence on your side on to kind of be a little bit more resilient when they ever give you advice. But you still take that 2 cents. You still say, but why are they so hell bent to tell me that this is just so bad? you know? And it's like maybe they have their own social anxieties and their own insecurities in their work, and maybe I'm doing something right. You know? You just got to start analyzing, like criticism, because it's super powerful. Yeah, whenever I love getting into this specific debate where someone says something is not potentially possible. I love it. I love it because then I find how it is possible. You know, it's so fulfilling. Like I had a debate with a programmer the other day, not the other day, like a year ago, and we were talking about programming. And I've started coming to this hypothesis about many things, uh, and it's starting to be rooted into theory, which is that you just got to find the core of what makes things work and put all your time and effort into those ideals and ideas because those transcend the tools and technology. What do I mean by that? Like, well, when you're trying to design a character, right? When you're trying to design like a monster or whatever, like there are some core ideas, and those ideas I'll be exploring with you guys throughout the class. But there are core ideas that just will transcend, like a good sense of shape design, good sense of functional design, good sense of uh, non-functional designs, good sense of just cool designs, uh, a good sense of form and anatomy, lighting, composition. These types of things can transcend tools, right? If you have a good understanding of these ideas, no matter what tool you use, you will manifest these ideas, right? But you'll just use the tools to do it. And when I was learning Blueprints, which was programming for, it's like a visual programming system for Unreal, which is super intuitive. It's really amazing. And I wish all programmers or program softwares had this. But anyway, um, I learned something about I think I figured it out. I was trying to figure out the core of programming. What's the thing that doesn't matter what tool I use that I should just master? What is the thing? I talked to my friends and my programming buddies, and then there came a there came a very clear resolution to this. What's the core? And what it is, algorithms. When it comes down to it, the core of good programming is algorithms. What does that mean? It means just really amazing and well thought through calculations and equations that do the job in a really clever or effective way, right? Because you can program a whole game doing it by the most um, clunkiest way, by basically putting, if this happens, make sure to check all these things, and if all these things happen, then make sure to do all these things, or if this happens, make sure to do all these things. And I've programmed like that because it's the easiest way to do it. It was like easiest way to manage in my mind. But then there's like ones where it's like, or x minus 2 equals y squared or something. And then all I got to do is create variables for x and variables for y, and then just plug them into the equation, and then it does the thing. That was like eye-opening. This is why you have different platforms like Venmo or Vimeo versus uh, what you call it, Vimeo versus YouTube. Like, why is there? You would think video players would be easy to do because it's just those algorithms. Their algorithms are just different, and some work better than others. No, see, so what you were just saying, Raymond, like JavaScript and C++, no, see, that's the point. Those are just tools. You see, people get so caught up, like, you got to learn C#, bro. Or you got to learn JavaScript, homie. Like, you got to learn C++, or you got to use this software. See, that's what I'm trying to say is like, yeah, sure. Like, whatever is your tool of choice, choose it and choose wisely, too, something that makes sense to you. But if you want to hold on to something that will transcend the tool, then learn algorithms, learn math, learn the language of God, right? Because that will transcend. Because already I can see, for instance, I was able to change the source code into JavaScript, even though I've never touched JavaScript in my whole life, right? I was able to go in there and actually read it. I've never even messed with JavaScript, right? But I was like, okay, I need to get in here. Watch, I'll show you what I did. Because I was like trying to make this guy over here, this guy over here, they load already. I was going to try to make this guy over here move at a certain rate, certain value, right? Because he was looking like he was flying. Because I basically copy pasted the script and it was not to my liking. It was in the wrong axis. I think it was on the X axis. And I needed to go on the Y or the Z axis, and I needed to go into the negative Z axis. So I was like, all right, well, where's the script? So here's the move entity script. And I was like, now I remember the ideas of variables and functions, and I remember simple mathematical equations that I would do in Blueprints. It was just visual. The only difference with this is all written now, but the thing in Blueprints is it was all visual. But I was able to say, okay, so basically it's saying this will initialize, it moves the entity, and this is the function, this is the bracket, and within and where in which the function exists. So all I gotta look for is where it looks like it's moving the position, and it's written in here, this dot target position dot z negative 20. So I changed, originally it was 10, and it was on the x-axis. So I changed that to z, and I changed that to negative 20, and then bam, it was going in the right direction, but then it was going too fast still, and I was like, okay, then this must be, I need to look for the time. And luckily for me, this person wrote down like comments that even made it easier for me to find what I needed to do. Oh, see, there's a delay here. Yeah, see, actually, no, I'm gonna change that. Oh, fuck being easy on the eye. And so then, and I wasn't afraid. I wasn't like afraid to make these changes in these variables because I understand what variables are and principles of this. And these are all, this is JavaScript. But this same language and ideas are still similar in C++ and C#. That's what I'm saying. They just use certain terminology different, but the same thing applies. It's like the same thing applies, right? Where it's like this does that and that does this. Call onto this, calls onto that. It's the equation, right? It might look different and might be written differently, but the philosophy will still be the same. Yeah. Absolutely, right? And that's kind of the point I'm trying to make, right? And so what was that for art? What is that for design? You have to like, it's really hard to figure that stuff out. But for me, when I discovered art, for instance, like I found the the equivalent to algorithms really when it came down to visually what makes something look amazing. What it comes down to, if I had to say in a word, shapes. It's all about the shapes. I remember I had a friend, uh, I don't know what Brain Chat is asking for. I'll talk to him later. It's all about them shapes. Yeah, and I'm saying to you like that even though the code looks similar, I think a programmer could jump into blueprints easily and understand what's going on too, even though it looks completely different. And in fact, I've been following some game dev people, and one of the guys, he literally said that. He's like, he's been programming exclusively in Unity, and then he's started trying out Unreal, and he was like, Blueprints is the shit. And I have a feeling that that's just going to be more of the norm eventually, right? Like where technology and software won't be as reliant on having you have to write everything. People will have devices that are strong enough to take on that extra baggage of that software that allows you to do that extra coding. And so when that becomes, like, basically imagine just code even being super simple, right? Where it's like anybody can figure it out. It's literally just slots in a thing. But then it's about how creative you are about putting into those slots, right? Then programmers' jobs will be almost obsolete because then everybody will be able to program. You just got to have a logistical mind, and it'll be just like a language. Yeah, and I bet your friend is just a really good, like, he understands like algorithms. Like I bet he's like really smart in terms of like writing equations, coming up with really amazing alternative um, solutions to complicated systems. Yeah, let's see if anyone else has another question actually, Dylan, before you jump in and take all the questions. You bastard. Fix that arm, bro. Fix that shoulder. Does anyone else have a question?
Hi, I had a question.
All right.
Well, we've been looking at a lot of like really out there design today and talking about that. And I was wondering if you had any advice on approaching something more grounded that we might have to do. Like say, Carla Ortiz, who we talked about last time,
Uh-huh.
did all those designs for Doctor Strange, and they look really interesting, even though they're, for film and have to be kind of simple to put together and stuff. So do you have any advice for that?
Yeah, of course. So my advice is really simple, actually. It's if you got to do something more functional, you just got to look at more functional things. You just gotta you have to actually know how it works. So like right now, I'm not really worried about something like this. This is like his legs are so skinny. I've been really getting into skinny legs designs lately, and I don't really care. I'm just trying to make a really appealing image.
Yeah, because my problem tends to be that I start thinking about the function too much, and then it kind of looks
What?
boring and a bit stale.
Yeah, he's doing a painting right now, and it's Q&A.
Oh, well, I hear people talking about me.
It's okay.
Who's talking about me? I hear double echoes.
So good. Okay.
Um,
Okay.
yeah, like so having yeah, can you mute yourself actually? Because I can hear myself. It sounds like I'm talking to myself.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, thank you. This is a little distracting. Thank you very much. So, yeah, like, having a clear understanding of how it works will let you design something that's a little bit more grounded. And that's actually not too difficult. It feels like a chore. That's all. All right, it just feels like, got to learn how mechanical joints work, man. But if you want to be really good at robots, then you got to know how mechanical joints work. I have a friend who's like super mechanical. Like he's amazingly, like that is his mantra. Like everything must be functionally sound. And you can tell in his work that's what he likes and cares about, right? And so if that's what you care about, then do that. Or that's part of the job description for whatever you're working on, then you have to do that. But you can fake a lot of it, especially if you're working in visual effects or phantasmical stuff. But to be honest, a better solution to that question is if that's something that you're not really interested in, then just don't make portfolio pieces that supply that you would actually be interested in it. Let me give you an example of one of my favorite games I would hate to work for, Uncharted. I love Uncharted, but I would hate to work on that project because I don't want it to be drawing khakis, you know? I want to be painting shorts or long sleeve shirts. But Fallout, I think that game is super boring, man. I'm not a big fan of that game. But if they were to call me up and say, hey, we're working on Fallout 17 and we want you to design some of the mutants, I'd be like, dude, let's do this. You know? And so you have to kind of know who you are and what kind of stuff you want to make, and just fill your portfolio with stuff like that, because people will hire you for whatever you show them. And people are like, well, I just want to get a job. Well, when you get that job, you might end up hating it, and you want to find a way out. Like many of my peers, I have too many friends that feel this way. Friends who worked at Blizzard and hate it. Some friends who love working at Blizzard. Friends who worked at Riot and hate it. And friends who love working at Riot. Friends who work at Sony that love it and hate it. It's just how it works, man. It's just how it works. I loved working at Blizzard, and I still left. And so you have to stick to what you would love to do versus on just what's convenient, because you're going to be the one that's going to be painting all these pictures over a long period of time, and you're the one that's going to be doing all the work. And if you don't like doing it, it's your own fault, really. And so getting to kind of that's a kind of a more broader answer to that question. But to do that kind of stuff, yeah, you just got to look at how it actually would work and how it could be actually made, and that will just require a little bit more effort. An effort worth doing, by the way. Doesn't hurt to have a little bit more knowledge. The whole know the rules before you break them, approach. Does it help, madam?
Oh, yeah, I wasn't sure if you were reading the chat or not.
I'm not. I'm panting.
Oh, right.
I
Okay.
wish
Yeah,
I
that
could.
was dumb.
I wish I could read and paint at the same time. That would be so OP, man. I would be learning so much
So I
stuff
just
so
wanted
often.
to go off that and ask, like, doing all the research and figuring out how things work, how do we keep from getting too bogged down in that? Because I do like doing grounded stuff, but I feel like my designs can get kind of boring because I start thinking about that too much, and then I overthink the design and it gets kind of stale.
You just gotta start off not doing that. Start off making it crazy and then finding a way to make it work. That usually is the best way to go about it.
Okay.
Because if you start off trying to think about how it works, yeah, you could probably get stuck there, right? But if you just like draw this crazy shape and then you say, I'm gonna make that a robot, make it actually work, that's a more creative challenge versus just like making a cylinder, making that epic. It's gonna be a little more challenging. It's clearly more. It's clearly much easier solution just to start crazy and then pull back than to pull back and then try to push it.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay.
Yee.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions? We'll take one more question. Don't worry, guys. We have plenty of time too. So if you feel like I don't have a question right now, we have more classes in which we'll do Q&A, so you can hold on to those questions, y'all. All right. Dillion.
Hey, I got one.
Dillion. Wait, is that Dillion? No, you can ask your
No, it's
question.
Thomas.
Go ahead, Thomas. And then we'll take Dylan's question after, and then we'll call it a night.
Okay, I was just wondering if you had any tips on anatomy. Is there some common things that, like parts of anatomy that kind of always meet up or line up with another part of anatomy? Things that,
So
we don't know? Like
anatomy, just to give you the answer straight up, anatomy is just, wait, who's humming?
Oh, fuck. That's me again. Hold on. It's broken.
Why are you humming? I appreciate your jolly nature. Oh, man, Lauren's definitely going to be leaving. She's going to definitely be dropping out of her school. So Thomas, back to you. So I think anatomy is one of those things that you just gotta like muscle down and just learn, you know, because there's like so many facets of it, right? And what really the common thread about anatomy is really just knowing how things are going to work. See, like there are some things in being a good character designer that you just gotta have to have a really good sense about, and that is some basic sense of anatomy, meaning you have to understand at least the major muscle groups. You have to understand the major bones. You have to understand how they work and how they interlock and interchange with one another. And there's no simple answer to that. You just got to know, right? And then you got to also understand the artistic aspect of anatomy, like gestures and versus forms, right? Which again, there's no easy answer to that. That's just again something you just got to practice and feel, right? And
Right.
because like for instance, a doctor knows their anatomy, but doesn't mean they can just draw a beautiful, paint a beautiful portrait of somebody, right?
Right.
But they would have an advantage over you. All they would have to learn is just the tools. You understand?
Right. Right.
And so that advantage is something that you can have too. You don't have to have a doctorate either. I'm just saying you got to have this basic anatomy. You wouldn't be able to do bypass heart surgery or anything crazy, but you would be able to understand how to work out certain muscle groups. You'd be more educated. Like you could potentially be passed as an apprentice physician. You know what I mean?
Right. So my question's probably rooted in the fact that I just don't know enough then.
Yeah, it's one of those things. Here's another good example of a thing that people ask me about that I just tell them you got to just practice straight up. It's like my brushwork. Like they're like, oh, how do you like blend so softly, right? Like I tried all different things. I'm like, I do it by just blending softly. It's just I just do it, and I can tell you how I do it, and it doesn't mean you'll just do it. You know, here's a parallel example. Hey, if you do, if you can do up to 60 to 100 squats, I would then challenge you to then try to do a one-legged squat. That's when you're ready. And once you do a one-legged squat, what you want to do is you want to balance to the majority of the leg that you're going to be squatting from. And with your other leg, when you do the straight leg, you want to kind of make sure that's used for anchoring weight. And so when you go down, you're putting a lot of emphasis on the side of the leg that you're squatting with, and then you push yourself back up. So I can tell you how to do that. Now, does that mean you now know how to do a pistol squat? No, right?
No.
Like it's like there is a whole array of training now that has to follow with those instructions. You understand? And so
Right.
same thing like with anatomy specifically, the reason why I don't really get too much into it is because there's literally countless amounts of information out there on how you can improve your anatomy. Countless. I have like 17 anatomy books. I have literally tens of thousands of anatomy images. I have thousands on my Pinterest. You know?
Yeah,
You just gotta like learn it, you know?
for
But
sure.
but here's so that's like me teaching you how to fish, right? Now let me give you the fish, right? The whole give a man a fish, you feed him for a day. Teach a man how to fish, you feed him for a lifetime. So I just gave you the lifetime lesson, right? What will propel you
Right.
forward. But here, I'm going to serve you some sushi right now. So that way you have a
Okay.
clue. What you need to do is to draw from memory when it comes to anatomy. And you got to test yourself. So what that means is that when you want to draw an arm from memory and then name all the muscles and what they do. And how you can test it yourself is just like academia has gone around teaching us how to learn things. You give yourself a time limit. You give yourself some sort of test, which is you can just draw it and then name it, and then see how much you got wrong, see how much you got right. People don't do this. People don't generally test themselves with art because they feel like it's not like it's like a different thing. It's the same thing, man. Like testing yourself, there's a reason why scientists do tests and uh, they test their results. They examine their hypothesis. They examine their experiments to see where the flaws may be. You know, this
Yeah.
is how we put rockets into space. You know, this is how we have smartphones in our pockets. Okay,
True.
and so you got to apply that same kind of philosophy. It's not a philosophy; it's an invention that's been invented a while ago, which is called the scientific method. Right? You have to quantify your growth somehow, some way. If you just keep shooting from the hip, you'll always be struggling, man. Right?
Yeah, yeah,
But if you
for
can
sure.
you can quantifiably say, I don't know how that muscle goes there, but I can find out. You can literally Google it, you know?
Yeah, yeah,
And so it's a hard road, but like it's it's a good one to travel, especially if you want to be a character artist.
for
Let me
sure.
let me tell you like one last example of this is that like all of the greatest painters and character artists that I know their anatomy. It's just a common symptom of a badass character concept artist. Okay?
Yeah. Okay,
So if you want to be a badass character concept artist, you got to have some sense of anatomy.
for sure.
The better you are at it, the better your drawings will appear, or your sculpts, or whatever the heck you are. Okay?
All right, I'm on it then.
Yeah, and it takes an effort, man. It takes a while. Trust me. I'm
Yeah,
still working on it. You know, it's just it's a lifelong thing, man. And in 10 years
yeah.
from now, you're gonna be dope at it. Yeah.
Cool.
All right,
Thanks.
Dilly on. Yeah, you're welcome, man. Go ahead and ask your question. Dumb ways to die. Dumb ways to die. Are you there? Hello? He was so eager about asking questions, and then he left. Thank you. Thank you, Nick. All right. Ask away.
Okay. So this is something that I actually really struggle with, and I really like creature and character, but I think they're like when I make really interesting shapes, usually I just end up making creature designs. How do I make sure that it's not just creature design and I add some character in there? Is it just a sense of civilization and sentience that differentiates a character from a creature?
Yeah, this is not a hard question, so thanks for asking it. So you end the class
Oh yeah, no problem.
after. You're onto it. So the way that I usually describe creatures is versus characters. Um, a character has like has some sense of personality, and that doesn't mean that you pose them or anything like that. I mean, like we can sense that they can be a character in like in the actual definition of the word, right? And a creature would be something that has no, like has like a one mindset, like instinctual behavior, right? Like when we look at like our dog, we can either look at our dog as like a vicious animal that's going to kill me, then it's a creature, right? Or it's my dog that I've raised. It's my buddy. It's my friend. It's a character, right? Jaws from Jaws is a creature. It's just a shark. One goal, one thing on mind: murder people, eat them up. The sharks from Finding Nemo are characters. You see what I'm saying? You picking up what I'm putting down?
Yeah, so yeah.
So you can totally have like a weird looking alien thingy that has character, right? Like that's what Star Wars is pretty much. Like you have nothing but that, right? But then but you can also have a humanoid character be a creature, like a creature that's actually humanoid looking, like Alien, and even the Predator, from the first Predator, right? so, like, the alien from Alien, definitely, right? And it's humanoid enough, but it has no agenda other than to murder people. It's just like super monstrous, right? And so, that's kind of where I sit with creatures and characters. But on the superficial level, right? Yeah, obviously characters are more humanoid and creatures are not. Okay, on the more superficial level. But like I said, just because I say that doesn't mean that it's always true. And I gave you many examples of how that's not true always. Okay, so that's why you're probably having this conundrum in your mind. And just because it's a crazy shapes doesn't mean it's not possible to make a creature. I'm sorry, a character from crazy shapes. Okay, again, there's always a counter example to something you might think is challenging, right? You, as a concept artist, your job is to find those examples and then apply them to your work. And if Pinterest opens up, I can show you some examples of just like the most extravagant design that is of a human. And I'll show you how it can be achieved. Once Pinterest loads. Oh my God, Pinterest has been more sluggish these days. They got to work on their algorithms.
So like if you were putting a piece in a portfolio, you'd definitely make sure it has like a personality. Like if you want to apply for character, you know, like I don't really know what employers are looking for in that.
Yeah, I already answered that question actually for you earlier. I told you exactly what employers are looking for. Like, don't be confused by the people who are confused at your school that don't know how to tell you the truth. Okay? It is very clear. Let me ask you, do you think Pixar Animation will hire me to work on, let's say, Finding Nemo 3 with this design that I have in front of me?
Probably not, no.
Why not? Do you think that I'm
just,
a good character artist, right? You think
oh
that I
yeah.
draw well, right? I paint pretty
Yeah.
good. Like, this turned out okay. You'd think that, like, why can't I get a job with them?
Uh, the is that rhetorical
No,
or?
I'm asking.
Okay. I mean, yeah, it's just not what they're looking for.
So what do you mean you don't know what companies are looking for? You
Well,
just
no,
spoke for Pixar right now. So you see what I'm saying? Like, that's exactly how it works, man. Like, Skyrim is not going to hire someone who can do Mass Effect stuff when they're making Skyrim. They're looking for medieval,
oh
realistic,
yeah,
practical designs.
yeah,
Mass Effect is looking for sci-fi, super future designs. They're more realistically proportioned. Destiny is looking for more fantasy sci-fi. Uh, Blizzard, World of Warcraft is looking for high, like exaggerated proportion, medieval fantasy design with lots of skulls and lots of spikes. The more skulls you have, the more spikes you got. If you got skulls with spikes that have skulls on them, you have a really good chance of doing some armor design for those guys. I mean, do you see what I'm saying? Like, it's actually not just, you can totally know what these companies are looking for. The problem is, what company do you want to work for? That's the real question. Do you understand? Like, that is the real question. For me, I've always wanted to work for Blizzard Cinematics. And so when they finally knocked on the door, it made perfect sense. My work reflected that. You understand?
yeah, yeah.
Don't get
I,
distracted by all these like, they're looking for all kinds of, like small studios are looking for people who can do all kinds of things. Why? Because they're a small studio. They can't afford to have specialists, right?
yeah,
It is all pretty intuitive and pretty obvious. The reality just hurts because you just realize I'm not good enough to work at Blizzard. I'm not good enough to work at Riot. I'm not good enough to work at uh, BioWare or wherever these companies are, right? You just list all the companies that you can't work for. But that doesn't mean that you can't work. It just means you can't work for those big companies, right?
yeah, yeah.
There's
I
smaller
didn't.
studios out there that exist that are looking for exactly what you're doing.
I just meant like would they hire a separate person for creatures and characters? Like would they do that?
What do you think?
Yes.
Yeah, man, there's examples in both cases. You see what I'm saying? There's people that only want to hire specialists, and there's other companies who don't.
Oh,
You,
okay,
you,
okay.
you, you can find these answers by looking at their job uh, positions. Of course, you're never going to know exactly how studios are going to work and run, right? Like, and I can never claim that I know every single studio, but your intuition is pretty reliable. You know, you're just being distracted by like whatever um, institutionalized education has done to you, which is it used to do to me and all my friends. Made us all need to do whatever we needed to get into
I'm
the
brainwashed.
workforce. Yeah, do whatever we like. Our job, our job or our field of work is really clear. Is what I'm trying to say. It's not like trying to get into HR, right? And you have to have like a weird resume and um, got to have a good cover letter. You just show that you can draw dragons to work on Dragon Wars. You know what I mean? It's really objective. It's not as subjective as you might assume. And
Okay.
I always tell my students to do this, to play as an art director. Oh yeah, here's a good example of, we'll let that. Say, let's do mock art director. We're working on a game, and the game involves, it's a highly realistic sci-fi game with aliens as the main hero. Who should we hire? Let's go to ArtStation. You know, this image right here, right? Super sci-fi realistic with aliens in our game. This image seems pretty spot on, don't you agree?
Yeah, yeah.
So why don't we pick this image over here, or even this image with the camel? All right.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah, I
because
got you.
yeah, it's because as an employer, like although these are great artists, it's not what we're looking for, right? That's how it works, man. That's like exactly how it works. Check it out. Let's see what's up here. So, CD project, right? They're looking for an illustrator. Not only are they telling you exactly what they're looking for, right? They're literally telling you this is like what you're going to be doing. This is what we would love to see. And some of these, like you're, oh, 3 years. I don't have 3 years of experience. Don't worry. As long as you can do what they can do, then you're good. Then just what the next step then is to find an artist who does illustration for CG projects, right? And you don't have to look far. Wait, whoops. I actually did not know Namanja's last name. Oops. Yeah, it is Stankovic. It's just there's more than one. Um, you don't have to look too far because one of my old students works as an illustrator. So this is what you need to do. This is what you need to do. This is what you need to do. This. Maybe not this one. You hear what I'm getting at?
Yeah, I got you. Yeah.
Yeah, man. I told him the same thing. I told him to go to THU. He's like, I can't afford it. I was like, just go. I got you the golden ticket. You have to pay for it, but I got you one that they all sold out. And he's like, what? And it's like, it gives you access to everything, the back, behind the stage and all that kind of cool shit. Go, because you're good. You have what it takes. And he's like, all right. So he got together with some roll-up pencilers up there, and he didn't have a place to stay. They said, you can stay with us because we had other students that were going. And Robotpencil crew rolls strong, and then they hung out. He went there, met with one of the CG Project's hiring manager. They looked at his portfolio. They were working on an illustration card game um, for their Witcher game, and he had all this stuff in his portfolio, right, including the stuff he did for my class, right? And they said, "You're hired." Got it?
Yeah, got it.
Yeah, it's not confusing. Don't get confused.
Dude,
Okay.
trust me, there's there's a lot more institutionalized brainwashed people in my school
I know, man. I
that
used
I
to go to one,
know.
and a lot of my friends were that way, and none of my friends are still that way, and it makes me sad. And I have to talk them out of it every time I meet up with them. So
Okay, cool. Thanks.
I'm gonna go now, guys. So meet up with some friends, hang out, enjoy the bleeding into the weekend. I hope you guys have a good one. Enjoy your guys' weekend. I appreciate y'all. You guys are all a good bunch of peeps. Hang out, talk, give each other feedback, help each other grow. Don't just stay in your corner in the world, not talk to one another. That 3D code open the whole time? No wonder my
Anthony?
freaking out. What? Hello?
Hi. Just one sec. A couple of us were looking for the critique videos, and it looked like our folder was missing from the website for our class.
It's the evening too, or evening. So here's your video right here.
Yeah, it wasn't showing up on the website. Like, we can't access it.
Really now?
Hmm.
All right.
Dude, also, I literally can't turn my microphone off right now. What's happening?
Nope. So here is the Dropbox link, just straight up. So
Hey, thank you.
just save that, and you should always have access to everything. And I'll see how I'll fix it later. Thanks for telling me, though. Appreciate you. This will be recorded and uploaded sometime tomorrow. So, laters, y'all. Have a good weekend, and I'll see you guys next week. Peace out, friends. Be safe. Don't party too hard.
See ya.
And fix your mic, Dylan. Jesus.
Dude, it's not broken, I swear to
Fix
God.
your mic. Laters.
Okay, see ya.
Thank you for watching this video. I appreciate it. Please subscribe to watch more in the future. If you liked the video, I would appreciate a thumbs up. If you like this content, you can go to my website, robotpencil.net, where you can find mentorships, tutorials, and a Patreon to get more exclusive content. Thanks again, and I'll see you guys in my next videos.